Hi, everybody, and welcome to the bugnut.com interview series. Tonight, we're going to be talking to Gary Keeping, and we're going to be discussing his 1971 Super Beetle. So stay tuned.
The bug nut.
Okay, hello everybody, welcome to the bugnut.com. We're going to start up our new vlogs, and we're going to start doing some interviews and with different Volkswagen enthusiasts that join us on all our social media channels. And we're going to be starting off with someone who is close by, but unfortunately we can't hang out with our cars right now because we're all in lockdown. So today we're inviting Gary Keeping to thebugnut.com, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his Volkswagen. So I'm just going to bring it over to Gary, and he can give us a little bit of insight about where he fits into the Volkswagen scheme of things, and what his likes are, what he's built, and what his plans are for the future. So Gary, take it away. Let us know a little bit about you.
Well, hello, Peter. It's good to be here tonight. My first Volkswagen was a 1985 Volkswagen Jetta diesel. You know, slow as hell, but it got me around. It was fun, but that put sort of the bug in my ear kind of thing for any of the other VWs I've had over the years. Now, my parents, they drove Volkswagens, and that's sort of how I ended up with that Jetta. It was something I had bought from my father, and anyway, there was a few years I didn't have any VWs after that. But then I kind of met up with a buddy. I lived up northern Ontario for a while, and I worked with this guy who we became really good friends. But he had the '73 Super Beetle.
Yeah.
And we bombed around in that thing and had a grand old time. So and he'd be out, you know, scavenging the countryside looking for parts cars and stuff like that. So with that in mind, I kind of got the fever for it, and you know, I was in Haliburton, and there was used to be a restaurant there called General Lee's Chicken. And beside that, for many years, there was this beat up old orange '71 Super Beetle sitting beside the restaurant.
Yeah.
And now I bought that car, and I bought another car, both from Haliburton. And the idea was that the orange one that I bought was going to be a parts car for this blue '72 Super Beetle that I built up.
Okay.
And it was. I scavenged a lot of parts off of that. And after some years of building up the '72 and driving that around and eventually selling that, I sold it to my friend. And then I had no Volkswagens.
Okay.
And so this hulk of a car sat full of parts at the family cottage, just tucked away in a shed. And one day I pulled that thing out of there. I thought, well, I've got to do something with this thing. It's got to either go to the scrapyard or, you know, do something with it. So
just like the rest of us, you just can't see them sitting there doing nothing. You got to bring them to life again.
You know it. You know, so I dragged this thing out, and I'm looking it over, and after I dumped all the parts out of it, you know, because my buddy Andrew and I had acquired so many Beetles over the years that were parts cars, so we just, you know, we dismantled them, and we had everything in them you could imagine. So this thing was just sort of a storage for all those parts for a few years. And when I dragged it out, I thought, well, the front end is pretty solid on this thing, and well, it needs a floor pan, but the one floor pan is really good, you know. But you know, the body was so, but it really, after looking it over and actually really getting into it, pretty much replaced the bottom 12 inches all the way around that car.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. And what year was this around?
That was, well, when I ended up dragging it home when I first bought it. Okay, I'll go back to that. It was 1992 when I first bought it.
Okay.
And now when I had dragged it out of that shed at the cottage, it was now it was 2003.
Oh, really? Okay, so it's been a long time.
Skipped a few years there.
Yeah.
I had built up that 72 and was driving it around and like I said, sold it, and then I was without something for a few years. So, we got looking it over, my buddy Andrew and I, and we thought, well, we can do this. It's not beyond our scope, so trailed it at home, and sort of the rest is history. It sat again for another year, until 2004, because in that year I was just working overtime just to buy parts.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was I had sort of made a promise to my wife that it's a hobby. It's not something I'm going to go into debt over. So I would work overtime, and when I'd work overtime, I'd pick up a part here and there.
That's your bonus money. Yep.
Yeah, with the bonus money, and so eventually I had enough sheet metal to start getting into it, and so we tore into it, took the body off the pan and completely sandblasted the pan and replaced all the metal on that needed to be done. So we started with that, and then moved on to the body itself, replacing the heater channels and replacing, just like I said, the lower 12 inches.
Yeah.
And it, at that point, it was really starting to come together, and so I cleaned all the original paint off of it, then epoxy primered it.
Yeah. Now you have a little story about how you actually cleaned the paint off the car, right? You did it a little different than most people.
Well, I had, for the most part, it was 3M wheels, the paint stripper wheels on a drill, and that, because I found that they worked effective. I went through a lot of them, and they're not cheap, but I went through a lot of them, and they did the job. They didn't warp any of the metal and all that. So they don't generate a lot of heat to warp the metal. So I was pretty happy about that. And so stripped it down to bare metal all the way around. On the inside, I sandblasted that and made short work of the interior. And then out to after all the countless hours of body work, sent it out to again, it went sort of up to where it had come from. It was going to Bancroft for the paint job.
Okay.
I took to Bancroft Auto Body because, well, we knew the owner at the time, Larry Anderson. He's gone now, but he painted the car, and then I brought it home and started assembling it. And in the meantime, while it was in the body shop, I think it was there over a winter, and I was just acquiring more parts to put the thing together. I kind of relish doing the upholstery aspect of it. It's sort of a bit more of my field. Mm-hmm. So I had some fun with that. Cotton nap headliner and all that, and I kind of tried to keep it looking relatively stock, but it's a stock custom because it's a Super Beetle. Like, there's really no other. It's got like the 60s vintage bumpers and lights and all that stuff grafted onto it.
Yeah.
And so at first glance, you don't think it's really that much of a custom at all until you realize it's a Super Beetle.
That's right. Yeah. And that was for those of you that don't know Gary. That's the trick with his car. It is a Super Beetle, but at first glance you don't see it. And when I met Gary some years ago at cruise night locally, I realized, I'm like, That's an interesting car. I really like it. Well, first of all, it was a Volkswagen, so of course I liked it. But I went and looked at it closer, and I noticed a couple of things with the car. Something wasn't quite right, and two, it had the same deck lid as my car. Now, I had a 1971 Super Beetle, so when I looked at it, and I was like, I think this is a Super Beetle. And I was talking to myself, and then I found Gary. Are you the owner of the car? Yes, he is, and he wants to show me the car, and I'm like, I go, is this a 71 Super Beetle? And he's like, yes, it is. And I think he was kind of shocked that I picked up on that, but it was because I have the same car, and most people don't pick up on it. It's very, if you don't have a keen eye or you're not trained in Volkswagen spotting, you're not going to realize how much work is actually done in this car. So anyway, I'll let Gary keep talking about the customization on this car.
Well, yeah, the trick was fitting everything that was earlier vintage to the Super Beetle. It just wasn't meant to be there. Like from the 30 millimeter side trim on it, that had to be custom. The running boards, well, I put wider than stock fenders on it to tuck a little bit more rubber underneath the car. So running boards and all that were custom made, but still look stock. Now I could buy wide running boards. I could buy fiberglass ones or stainless ones, but I wanted it to still look stock. That was the thing. It still had to be a metal running board that had the vinyl mat on it, so that was all custom done at Four-Way Metal Fabrication in Bolton, and I'll give them a bit of a plug for the work that they did on that. And I was really happy with the results. But really a lot of it came down to cutting out a lot of cardboard and making templates, as you're pretty familiar with.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Everything, like it's got the stock AM radio in the dash, but even that I've kind of rewired that so I can listen to MP3s on it.
That's right. That was another clever thing. I did like that. That was like a neat gadget, and that's before you could get all these retro sound radios where you could have Bluetooth and all these things built into a radio that basically looks stock.
Back in 2000 and by the time I got it on the road, it was 2008. So I'd say probably by the time I was doing that, it might have been 2006, 2007 that I was working on that.
Okay.
And so it was before the whole Bluetooth thing exploded.
Yeah.
And so I'd I just wanted to listen to some good selection of music, without having to listen to the AM banter, and AM stations these days are pretty hard to pick up.
Yeah.
It's not like they were back in the 70s.
Yeah, that's right. And also, of course, you don't want to cut the dash if you don't have to. I think that's when we were all trying to fit those radios in back in the 90s, everyone was trying to fit in these full-size radios, and they don't fit in perfectly. It's a tight fit, and you have to cut the dash. So I think your solution was a good one to put that radio in with a little customization, to hide that cable in the glove box so that you couldn't see the modern stuff. It all looked kind of old school and stock, but really it was tricked out. So
right.
That was a clever idea, and something not everybody could do. So kudos to you for that. Now tell us a little bit about the paint. You got a unique paint job on this car, or the color scheme.
Well, it's just a black and red color scheme. They're Volkswagen colors. It's a salsa red and black. Now, originally, when I was building it, I was going to go with what I had envisioned when I was building it was a Ford Grabber blue on the side with the black, and I thought that would really look sharp. And my wife and I were looking through like some car magazines, looking at old Bugattis, and a lot of the Bugattis with the black and red color scheme. And it's like, no, that's not doing the blue and black. We're doing the red and black. That's
you got to do that. That was it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, but I did want a two-tone paint job right from the start.
Mm-hmm. When you were working on the car, what were your biggest challenges that you faced, and what were some of the accomplishments that you were able to complete on the car that you were really proud of?
I had pride in the whole process because it was, it was something I was doing with my own hands, the whole thing, right from start to finish, right from, tearing it apart and right till like the final thing when it was starting the engine up the first time. Mm-hmm. And then I ran it for a few years with that stock nearly stock 1641 cc engine in it. Yeah. And it ran quite well. And then, but I had built it with the intention of putting something a little beefier in it because I had put 4-wheel disc brakes on it. Got rid of the 4-wheel drums, put 4-wheel disc brakes on it. Like I said, it was slightly widened. The fenders were 2 inches wider than stock, so I could put wider rubber in it. So all in all, it was like 4 inches wider. It was 3 inches lower. It was just screaming for something a little bit fire, a little bit with a bit of fire under the hood kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I acquired a Type 4 engine.
Okay. Yeah.
And well, there's all kinds of ways to go about it. There's kits that you can buy, and that's not the way I really wanted to go with it. I wanted to do something again because it's all about doing it yourself. That's the hobby, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's not so much about the car as the procedure in building it, right? That's where the fun is, and you get something great as a result in the end. But yeah, so as you know, because you helped me with a lot with that engine, and we had to fabricate everything. It's a pancake engine that had to be converted to an upright cooling system, and without buying all the stock parts, it's a matter of fabricating them. I got some wonderful literature on it. Some of the things I did on my own that I figured was a little bit better than what I saw in any of the literature I read, whether it was in some of the manuals or whether it was online. Everybody has their own idea of how to do it, and I just kind of like the way I did mine. It looks like it's pretty stock. Mm-hmm. It looks like it's meant to be in there. It doesn't look like it's something that's been rigged up.
Again, something that you'd have to have a trained eye to realize that something's not quite right with this motor. Besides it looking like it's a performance motor, it's more than just a motor that's supposed to be in that car. It actually came from a completely different car altogether. Yeah,
the one I chose was actually. Now there's not much difference in the Type 4 engines between the VW Bus and the Porsche 914, but the one I chose was actually out of a 914, and I kind of liked the idea of that just simply because it wasn't pushing around a great big heavy bus loaded with a whole family and their dogs and all kinds of camping gear and getting really tired, right? The 914 was a lighter little car, and so I figured the engine wouldn't be quite as
tired,
as weary. Yeah.
So you have the car completed. You've brought it to some shows, and you've had some success. Do you want to tell us about some of those things?
Well, the very first show I took it to was June Jitterbug, Niagara Falls in 2008. So I won best of class in its very first showing, which really sent me for a loop. I didn't expect to even place really, because nobody'd really done what I've done. Mm-hmm. I'd never seen it. I've seen all kinds of like German look and Cal look kind of Super Beetles. I've seen the stock. I've seen all kinds of wild custom, but not a custom that looked like it wasn't really custom.
We can call it the Gary look.
Yeah, maybe. I kind of like that.
And so you've got the car, you've put it on the road, you've brought it to shows, you've built your second motor for it. Do you have any future plans for the car, or where do you go from here?
Where do I go from here? Well, I just want to drive it. From here, I want to drive it. I don't foresee doing much more. It's kind of at the point right now where I had envisioned it many years ago, minus the color scheme.
That's all right. Well, it's good. I know driving it is. A lot of us have a hard time getting to that point. So congratulations on getting your car completed and on the road and in drivable condition. Unlike myself, who has a car all in pieces, and we're trying to get to that as fast as possible. So, do you belong to any clubs, or are you looking to join any clubs?
I don't belong to any clubs now, and if there's a club that I would join, it's probably the Kitchener-Waterloo club because, well, for one, they're the closest to me. I'm, here in Orangeville, so Kitchener-Waterloo is not that far.
Okay, very good. Do you have anything else you want to add to your Volkswagen story, or any shout-outs that you would like to make?
I'd like to shout out to some of the people that really helped me along the way with it. Some of the buddies that really helped me along the way are for you, Mr. Peter Rood.
Thank you.
And Aaron Hill. He helped me a lot with the body work on it. And Andrew Way. He was the inspiration in the beginning and helped me so much with getting that body into one single piece.
Very good. All right, well, I think that's all we got for now, and we like to thank you for your time and sharing your story about your Volkswagen, and hopefully we can get these cars on the road and get together real soon, and we'll keep sharing everything that's happening with thebugnut.com, and we hope to see everybody again real soon.
Right.
All right, thanks a lot, Gary.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, no problem. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's all the time we have for this evening. We'd like to thank Gary Keeping for sharing his story about his 1971 Super Beetle. If you want to see more images from his car, you can check out our online gallery at thebugnut.com. We have lots of images and videos for you to check out, so we'll see you online.